wanted to be sure. Dave Levitt from the Murmur Group, who's going to talk about our favourite topic of ROAS, return on ad spend, and the groundbreaking emergence of marketing mix modelling. Please give him a loud round of applause. Working? Yep. Okay, right. Can everyone hear me okay? Or am I just imagining things? No? You made it. This is the end of day one of Retail Fest, or day two, sorry. It's the graveyard shift. So I can tell that you guys actually really care about the industry and what we're talking about, and not just here for stuff. I've got 35 minutes or so of your time, and I don't want to be the person that keeps you from getting out and enjoying the festivities. It's certainly been a long day. So I'm hoping to cover this off in about 25-ish minutes or so, and we're going to either have Q&A or jump straight into the bar and stuff like that. How's that sound? Yeah. Good. All right, nice. So, it has been a long day, but before we do that, it's just time to re-energise the room, okay? So I want everyone to stand up. Everybody's standing up. Who hasn't played Heads and Tails at the pub? Okay, so you're all familiar with it. I'm going to run through a number of questions. You go heads if you think the answer is up there, it's fine. Tails if you think it's not. Up for grabs, I've got a $100 prepaid Visa gift card. Sound good?
Yeah.
Woo! Alright, okay. First question. Third-party cookie deprecation will impact platform reporting metrics. True or false? Third-party cookie deprecation will impact reporting metrics. Yeah, it's an easy question. I mean, people are looking at their watch this with their eyes closed. The answer, of course, is true. The cookie apocalypse is coming. I'm going to have some harder questions to try and wind this room up. ROI is a measure of effectiveness. ROI is a measure of effectiveness. Heads if true, bums if false. Here we go. Alright, ROI is a measure of effectiveness. The answer is false. Anyone with a head? Yep, anyone with their bums? You keep standing on with their heads. ROI is a measure of efficiency, not necessarily effectiveness. Anything that has return or cost or anything like that is purely measuring efficiency, and I'm going to touch on that a little bit later. Third question. ROAS is an indicator of both long and short-term return. ROAS is an indicator of both long and short-term return. Heads if true, bums if false. Heads if true, bums if false. What is this? You can't do one hand on the head, one hand on the head. Jesus! Take a side. Take a side. It's false. ROAS only measures your short-term return. It doesn't measure any long-term return. Increasing ROI will increase your revenue. Heads if true, bums if false. Heads if true, bums if false. ROI, or increasing ROI will increase your revenue. False. Increasing your ROI will not necessarily increase your revenue. I'm going to explain that and hopefully showcase a little bit. Last question. Alright, how many people we got left? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8. Okay, alright. This is going to be difficult to try and get this down to one card. I don't know how much. What did we decide on this?
Put it up. We're going to play the game.
Yep, okay, alright, okay. Oh shit! Oh no! Shit! I'm absolutely gaffed it. Absolutely gaffed it. Alright, okay. When was marketing mix modelling first used as a concept, I got trigger happy. Everyone knows it's true. 1950s. I'm going to talk to you about MMM and what that basically means for the industry. So, for the 8 people that have won, very well done. You get a bag. If you come and see me, I will give you. How the fuck am I going to do this?
The first person to put up their hand plays the game at the end and gets $100.
Okay, alright. When I get to the part of the quiz, from the 8 people that are remaining, the first person that volunteers or wants to win the prize gets the $100 gift card. Alright. I need to find some harder questions. I've done it before, people have been wiped down to question 3. Okay, cool. Let's get stuck into it. That's a bit of fun. I just want to firstly acknowledge the growing complexity that everyone in this room is currently facing. It has been a pretty hard couple of years for marketers. Over the last number of years, from basically the COVID period, things have gotten harder and harder for everyone in this room, everyone that's touching marketing. There has been working from home pandemics, collaboration is increasing, trying to get things done is going slower. And every time you read the press, the CMOs are out the door, marketing itself is being greenwashed, you're having to do more and more stuff that's not necessarily part of your role. Scott Galloway from NYU basically said that the average tenure of CMOs has been halved, come down from 4 years down to 2 years, which means that it's getting harder and harder for you to choose what to focus on. How do we actually talk to CEOs and CFOs about the value of the stuff that we're doing? And I think, above all, the key challenge that we're facing is that around understanding the difference between marketing effectiveness and marketing efficiency. And we need to understand and be clear on what both of those elements are. Marketing effectiveness. Anyone got an idea? Who's brave enough to tell me what marketing effectiveness is? Okay, marketing effectiveness is the ability for you to reach those objectives. How do you actually get the job done? Marketing efficiency. Any ideas?
How much money are you going to make?
Not how much money. How much money are you going to take to do it?
Yeah. Oh.
Efficiency is around like how fast or how quickly can we actually do this.
Okay.
So effectiveness is around like is the job getting done? Efficiency is like how much cash are we burning through to get it done. So it's been a long day. I'm just going to tee you up with 3 takeaways from today. The first is I'm going to cover off the problems with current marketing metrics. It's going to be a bit of doom and gloom for the next 5 minutes, and you're going to think, holy shit, can you just shut up and tell me how to solve all of this stuff? But the second thing you have to learn is what the solutions look like. I'm going to take you through how to solve a lot of those problems, and then the third is going to show you how a lot of those solutions can help with things like budget allocation. So the problems with current marketing metrics. Let's go back in time. And we're going to go back in time to 1914. First hand in the room. Who can tell me what happened in 1914?
World War I.
World War I happened, but it's not the answer I'm thinking of. It's like Jeopardy, you got to wait till I'm finished. Who can tell me what happened in 1914 that would impact the way that the world looks at business and marketing? World War I is a good concept, or a good idea. It definitely happened in 1914. But this happened in 1914. This is the DuPont Company Executive Committee. Anyone got any ideas on what these guys do in 1914?
Chemicals.
Yeah, explosives, dynamite. They basically had a supply chain of dynamite and productivity and stuff like that and blowing things up. It was pretty lucrative in 1914, right? This guy is a guy called Donaldson Brown. And Donaldson Brown joined the DuPont Company in 1914. He actually joined in 1908 when he was about 17 years old, and he joined as a salesman. After a couple of years in the sales team, he got moved into finance. And when he was in finance, he actually developed a metric of measuring what the impact of current investments would be for DuPont. Can anyone guess what he came up with? No, he didn't come up with ROAS. ROAS comes later. What did this salesman come up with?
ROI.
ROI. It wasn't even a finance guy. It's a fucking salesman that came up with ROI. He came up with ROI. Now the problem with ROI was actually not a problem, but there's 2 caveats with ROI that we need to think about. The first, I'm still getting triggered, is that it only focuses on current revenue as a formula. ROI does not calculate and cannot tell you what the impact of your current activity is happening in the market for any future activity that might happen. So it's not a problem with ROI, remember it's a caveat. So if you're doing activity now that you're hoping is going to impact in the future, it's not being measured in that metric. Who's read this book? No? Okay. I will somehow get this information to the guys at Retail Fest. You have to read this. This is the long and short of it. This is written by 2 amazing marketing professors. They're going to be talking about Lisbon and Peter Field in about 20 or 30 years. They are the godfathers of current marketing. The long and the short of it basically says that long-term investment in advertising doubles the profit of short-term. The long and the short. So short-term is short-term sales activation. Long-term is long-term brand building. If you're only going to be doing short-term activations and short-term selling, it will not have as positive an effect in the future as if you're doing both long-term brand building and short-term activations. I don't have the time to go into this now. I'd love to talk about this for 30 minutes, but I've chosen another topic. The second caveat, Donaldson Brown, didn't take into account the work that this guy did, even though his name's Anne, but Anne Robert Jacques Turgot. In the late 1700s, he came up with a certain law. He and a bunch of other economists at the time. Any idea what law he came up with?
Diminishing returns.
Diminishing returns.
Law of diminishing returns. This is a huge impact. Now, the sales guy selling explosives didn't necessarily take into account this because the law of diminishing returns generally states that the more that you spend, the lower your return is going to be. I'm spending $2, I'm getting a $20, the ROI of 10 to 1. I suddenly want to increase this and I want to spend $5, I'm getting $40 revenue. I've doubled my revenue, that's fantastic. But holy shit, my ROI's come down by 20%. So what do you want to measure? Do you want to measure revenue or do you want to measure ROI?
ROI.
Well, do you though?
Oh.
You've doubled your revenue. You've doubled your revenue. ROI will send you broke. Everyone got about Byron Sharp, How Brands Grow. Anyone read that book? Fantastic book, I've read it 3 times. You've got to read this book, I'll get that book to you sent to you as well. How Brands Grow basically says that like category buys are the way that a brand grows. You don't necessarily grow by focusing on loyalty and retention, it's all around acquisition. Finding people that have never bought your brand to buy them once, because you've got 80% of that market basically out there. You're going to make a lot more money by getting people that have never bought your brand to buy it once than by getting people that have bought it 5 times to buy it a 6th time. If you live in the short term, you'll die in the long term. So, that's ROI. Pretty clear? Yeah? Another sense of the vibe here. The ROAS myth. ROAS is heralded as like the be-all and end-all. My team think I look like this guy, that's why I'm wearing a hat at the moment. They got confused. I am bald as well. I am not him. I actually had a couple of t-shirts made up that had fuck ROAS written on it, and I wasn't brave enough to wear them. But we all know what ROAS stands for, right? Return on ad spend. Oh, I don't think so. I think it actually stands for this. I think ROAS stands for the reckless overstatement of ambiguous statistics. And I think it's time to throw it out. Because if you are basing a lot of your marketing decisions on ROAS and ROAS alone, I think you're going to be hurting your brand in the long term. I think you've got to be focusing on effectiveness measures rather than efficiency measures. There's 3 problems with ROAS, and you're probably aware that I doubt that any of these are going to be new to you. But I mean, we also still carry on about ROAS. And the first is that it only tracks ClickPath user journey. If you're a brand and you are advertising, a general rule of thumb with media is once you've reached a saturation point in your investment in a channel, you need to find a new channel to invest in. It's not necessarily good just like pumping more and more money into Meta, more and more money into Google. Find a new customer touch point, find a new way to build mental availability within your customer. Now, ROAS does not track any non-digital channels. The second thing is that it only captures the people that are willing to actually convert. So the 95-5 rule, again, it's a little bit of marketing science, but out of your total addressable market of people that are going to buy your brand, generally only about 5% of them are going to buy it in the next 30-40 days. The rest of your marketing activity that you're putting out is trying to just build mental availability for the 95% of the market that aren't going to buy your brand now, but are going to buy it in the future. And the similar problem or caveat with ROI applies to ROAS, in so much as the work that you're doing now isn't being measured now, it's only going to be liquidated in the future. And then the third problem with ROAS is that we've got the cookie apocalypse. It's still on track for June. Chrome's going to basically wipe out any third-party tracking. Apple's already crushed it all. Your ROAS numbers are already fudged. Anything that happens in Safari isn't being tracked in any of the platforms, and from June it's going to happen with Chrome as well. So, what if I told you I could solve all those problems? Can I get a show of hands if you'd be interested? Yeah, okay, come on. If you didn't put your hands up, what do you need? Come on, what else? I teed that up. What if I told you that there was a solution that wasn't limited to tracking ClickPath journeys? That it could quantify all market variables as you had them? What if there was a solution that didn't focus necessarily on the short-term activity, but could take a longer view of like a 1-year, 2-year period and look at additional elements? And what if there was a solution that was not reliant on third-party cookies, but was privacy secure? Is that something that would interest you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that is marketing mix modeling. Who has heard of marketing mix modeling like recently? Yep. Okay. It's becoming greater and greater. And basically, marketing mix modeling is the statistical analysis that quantifies the impacts of all market variables on one core KPI. And basically, what that means is it doesn't just look at promotion, which is what all attribution looks at is promotion. The 4 Ps, like product, price, place, promotion. All attribution does is focus on promotion and what's happening there. There's a bunch of other marketing elements that are taking place there. But MMM focuses on all market variables. It also lets you help forecast. Now, these are the Google searches globally for MMM, or marketing mix modeling. There was a small little bump back here in 2019, 2020, you kind of know what happened there. But look at the 2024 chart. Now, where are we in 2024?
Q2.
Yeah, that was March. Yeah, imagine what that's going to be in December. It's fucking massive. So if you aren't thinking about MMM now, if you're not educating yourselves and your team, or at least considering how you bring something like this into your system, you're going to be a little bit behind the 8 ball in a year or two. But MMM can be a pretty heavy topic. It is late in the day. I don't want to get too in the weeds. So I've kind of broken this down. I'm going to explain what MMM does using a lemonade stand as an example. And we're all familiar with the concept of a lemonade stand, right? I'm a little 10-year-old kid and I'm selling glasses of lemonade for $1. But sometimes I might go and advertise it. I might advertise through town that I'm putting a lemonade stand in. I'll put some posters up saying, come past Dave's lemonade stand and buy my lemonade. Other times I might drop my price. I might say, I'm going to sell it for 70 cents today, not $1. And then sometimes I might give away a cookie. Now the question that I have is what's working and what's not working? How am I going to tell? And MMM solves that. So, basically what we do is we take 7 days worth of sales. These are all the sales that we made with lemonade from day 1 through to day 7. And on some days, I know where I put posters up in town. On other days, I know exactly how much I sold it for, whether it was $1 or maybe I was giving a price promotion. And then some days I actually gave away cookies. So MMM will figure out an attribute basically where they fall. Now there's 3 key stages for MMM. The first is model building. I'm going to go pretty deep and pretty statistical on that, and I'm certainly not a data scientist. You have to bear with me. I'm going to try and break it down for you later on a Wednesday. The second is model evaluation. So once we've built a model, how do we evaluate it and make sure that it's fit for purpose? And the third is budget allocation, figuring out the impact and drivers of sales. So model building. All right, let's get into it. This is going to get heavy. You have to bear with me. If you try and leave, I'm going to lock the door because it will get better and will come out of the weeds. But regressional analysis is the way that you do this. So linear regression. It's an econometric model. And basically, it figures out and understands correlations happening at different times with different variables. It's generally easier to think of it if we just think of it as one variable. So we want to take one variable. And basically what we want to do is we want to take lemonade sales as our fixed component. We're going to measure what the impact is on price as our variable component. And G is our predictive unit. So Y equals G times X. Now we don't know what G is, that's what we've got to try and figure out. So what we do is I know on day 1 I sold 20 and the price was $1. On day 2 I sold 18, the price was 70 cents. On day 3 I sold 37 and it was $1. Day 28, so on and so forth. You get the gist, right? I've got my X column, I've got my Y column, and generally you'll have a curvy analysis. And the things with correlations, what you want to try and find is you want to try and find positive correlations and negative correlations. If you've got a bunch of dots all over the place, that means there's not much correlating happening at all. But essentially, linear regression, what we want to try and find is the projective point of where G is going to be. Now you do that by basically building a trend line. Who's built a trend line in Excel before with Google Sheets yet? That's kind of the easiest way to think about linear regression, and it's in the name, linear. So in MMM, you're doing linear regression, but the thing is, you're only not doing it with one variable. We will generally use about 10 to 15 variables, and the multi-linear regression that you need on that that's when you need a lot of data scientists and data engineers to do it. But this is what you're trying to find. This is how it's actually done. Now, MMM has been around since the 50s. The reason why it's increasing in popularity now, the reason why it's increasing in marketing in the marketing industry is because you used to have to pay the big four accounting firms, your PwCs, your KPMGs, you have to pay them hundreds of thousands of dollars and give them reams and reams of paper. And they would come back to you about 3 or 4 months later and say, okay, we've gone through all this and this is what it is. Mind you, you're now 9 months down the track and you've got to start forecasting for next year. With the advent of AI and the increased processing power, what used to take 9 months can happen in about 3 or 4 weeks. The hardest part is just collating all the data. Because you've got to get all the data, you've got to get it into one spreadsheet. The actual cleaning and cleansing of the data is probably about 85% of the information, and then 15% of the time taken on analysis. So that's linear regression. If you're asking like how MMM is done, it's done through technically multilinear regression. This is one example of one. You've now got to throw like 10 to 15 variables in there. So model evaluation. So how do I know that this model works? If I've got my linear numbers and I want to like stress test it, how do I do it? Well, we know what days the eliminated sales happen, right? This is the chart, that same graph that I had before. Maybe my base sales are going to be at 40%. And every MMM model you have is going to have an element of base. And base is basically brand equity. What would happen if I just stopped everything? Like how many sales would still happen? What you then need to figure out is what the impact is of the other sections. So for example, we might say, so in this example, we're assuming maybe 40% of activity, of this eliminated activity is going to happen regardless. 37% is based on us giving away a cookie. 14% is based on lemonade. And on those days when we increased our price to $1 from 70 cents, it actually had a negative impact on our price. Because things can impact us negatively. If there's another lemonade stand opening up 2 doors down the street, that will have a negative impact on our sales. But these numbers need to equal 100%. So you add 40, 37, 14 and 9 together, you get to 100. That gives you 100% of your sales. And you put that model up. Oh, it doesn't really match the graph. Shit. Fucked it. Okay, alright. Let's shove the numbers around. 37 on base. Yeah, we're going to do some data analysis. I'm doing what would usually take the guys about a week or so. I've just done it in a second, but they're going to fill the numbers around. 37, 40, 15 and 8. I know what the actual sales are. If I apply that to the sales figures, what actually happens? That's pretty close. Fuck, okay, that's amazing. What I can do now is I can actually forecast. I know the percentage impact that these activities are having on my sales. So the thing is with marketing mix modeling as well is that no model is ever perfect. You're never going to get to 100%, but whatever you get to as a worst case scenario is going to be a hell of a lot better than what you've got currently as a best case scenario. Who's gone and seen a sporting event in the last, 12 months? Hands up. Live. Okay. How much of an impact did weather play on your attendance? Were you going to an outdoor stadium? Yeah. So if it's rain, pissing down rain, oh fuck, I might not go. If your team's winning or losing, if my team's winning, I'm probably more likely to go than if they're losing, right? Melbourne City Football Club are one of our clients. We worked with the guys down there for a number of years, and their biggest focus is crowd attendance. How do we get more people going to a game? Because we know generally that if we get more people going to games, it opens up the conversation and more people are going to be coming along because football is, especially most sports, one of those things where you're going there to be part of that experience. So they've got crowd attendance as one of their core KPIs. So basically what we've done is we're working with the guys on pulling all first party data that they have available. What happens to all the ticket sales over the last 2 to 3 years? What happened to the media budget? So how much were they spending each week in the leading up to the game? What were their membership sales like? What are their ticket sales like? What are their roster and personnel changes? What's all the first party data that we can capture and generate? And then, what are the third party variables that we can get? Who heard about the Melbourne Derby about 2 years ago where there was a riot, someone got slammed with a bucket on their head? No? Okay, maybe this was on in the... Yeah, okay. That's a negative impact, right? That's going to have a negative impact on your brand. Weather, massive variable for sporting events. So basically we're scraping the bomb and getting all of the information from the bomb and Bureau of Meteorology and just throwing that into the system as well. And basically what we want to try and do is their media agencies figure out what is the right media budgets that we should be allocating to in order to help impact and drive that crowd attendance. Hopefully next year I can come and tell you about the results. But I will talk you through budget allocation. And budget allocation basically says that once I know what the drivers of sales are, once I know like I've got 40% or 30% or 11%, I can then start to figure out and map out from a channel investment perspective how much I should be putting into a media channel before I have to stop that investment and then start opening up another channel. So this is a saturation curve. Things like, Anne Robert talking about the law of diminishing returns. At some point, the amount that you spend and the amount of sales that you can attribute that to that will either be over-investing or under-investing. The key question for your media agencies that we try and answer is like, at what point do we start shifting that money elsewhere? That is how MM can help. So, just quickly, I'll take you through a quick case study. We had a FMCG client that wanted to understand the impact of TV ads on sales. They had like little snack components. They also wanted us to suggest an optimal mix between digital platforms and TV. So we basically looked at all their models. We found out from the drivers of sales, base made up 37%. They had non-brand paid activity at 9%. TV off-peak, they were doing 8%. Meta had made 5% of the impact of sales. TV on-peak, paid search, YouTube display. We figured all that out. We also found out through the analysis that they had competitors spending, and when the competitors increased their spending, it actually had a negative impact on their sales. And sometimes when they were increasing their price, and not on price promotion, it had a negative impact as well. So what we did is we talked about those channels and we figured out what their spend was, what the actual spend was, and we're able to determine through the saturation curves what revenue can actually be attributed to that. What we're then able to figure out is what your ROI is on that. We're then able to look at the channels and think, okay, from looking at not necessarily an ROI perspective, but a saturation curve perspective, which channels are currently under-investing, which channels are currently like near an optimum spend, and which channels are we actually over-investing in and we need to try and pull back on. So what we ended up doing is reduce spending in non-brand paid on YouTube, and we invested it in TV, Meta, and search. And what we found is that we had a recommended spend, basically generally the same amount of dollars for next year. We looked at all the recommended spends, applied it, had a general recommended uplift across all the channels, so 8, 4, 5, display stayed relatively similar. We just pulled back on YouTube and non-brand paid. And the change in media spend delivered $432,000 additional revenue, increasing by 7% from the same media spend. So now it's your turn. From those 8 people that put their hands up earlier, who wants to go? Okay, Zia.
No, I don't.
You've actually done it already today. So do you want another go at demonstrating it for $100 or?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So now I need to try and flip the switch. You have to come up here, Zia. Okay. Let's see. It is the same as before, yeah. Where's Polly? Put Zia at Polly. This is a little game that we tried to create. It's like a real phone number. Okay, so this is a little game that we created. If you come to our stand, you can get a little nice premium tote bag, but you can also have your own go at MMM. Now we've just used media modelling for this. What Zia's going to try and do is she's going to try and find out if you spent $3 million last year and drove $7.5 million in terms of revenue. We've outlined what channels were over-invested, what channels are pretty much on point in terms of their spend, and what channels are under-invested in terms of where can we actually have some more runway. Overall, we're giving $1,000 to the person that can drive the most amount of revenue. I saw someone get over $8 million today, so that is the target. So, these are the channels, SDM 450, where do you want to spend it? So now we're just going to sit back and critique Zia's allocation of spend. So,
Is phone a friend of
oh yeah, right, yeah, brilliant. Okay, I should have done that. 2024. So, yeah, you can come to the stand, you can play around with it, it's like a little sliding scale. Yeah, we'll give you some information, but not all the information. We also have to keep some of the information back so it's more interesting for you to come and play and try and guess. But this is generally how it works. You do MMM and you can figure out what channels do I want to invest in, where do I spend it, where do I pull it back. So it's just a rough example.
While that's happening, can I ask a question here?
Yep.
So, your model, although the models are here, I understand, but that incorporates the long-term return.
Yeah, we generally need 2 years worth of data.
Right.
2 years minimum. Melbourne City, we're getting 5 years worth of data. So we've been working with the guys for 5 years, so we're getting 5 years worth of media budgets, putting that into the model. The reason why I say 2 years worth of data is because otherwise you may as well just be using attribution or something. And a lot of the activity you're doing in your market now is going to have an impact in the long-term future.
Okay.
Oh, yes, was there a follow-up?
Yeah, follow-up is, so I understand how to capture lifetime value. What about...
Not necessarily lifetime value. Remember, it's measuring the impact on sales, is what it's measuring.
Okay.
Yeah, not necessarily lifetime value of customer.
And what about that window, 30-day window where they click and... can that capture a longer window period or what?
Not really. You kind of you want to understand what the impact is of activity that you're doing now that has had an impact within a 2 year span. So if you only really want to focus on short-term activity like within 30 days, I mean, you may as well just use attribution modeling.
No, what I mean is someone might see your content of what kind convert in like 10 months time.
Yep.
The current model of ROI and Google Ads or whatever doesn't capture that.
No.
Your model
No, it doesn't. Yeah. Whereas this will capture it. So we will put the spend in. Now, when you're building the models out, they all need to have the same cadence and frequency. So if your sales are attributed daily, we'll need to get daily spends in there. All the variables need to be on the same cadence. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yep.
How are we going? Oh, okay, we're just okay, almost done.
So amazing at a high level, but what about like variations in creatives and stuff like that? Surely you've got like
you can do it.
Amazing Facebook ad or something like that you've got that completely skews the data that ad.
You can do creative model testing. I've got a case study where we've tested creative, especially on Meta as well. It can be done, but the thing is with marketing mix modeling is you only have one variable. Because as soon as you throw more variables into the mix, it's going to skew all the correlations. So when you're doing it, you really have to find what your core KPI is. I would say that what I'm generally, at the first time, is sales and revenue, because that's the most, everyone wants to see the dollars. Once you're doing it longer term, you can definitely be putting creative messaging in, but you're only then impacting what the creative messaging is. But you can't do it as a subset. You have to use the core KPI first. So you only can measure one single model at a time. You can build multiple models out, definitely. So you can measure like crowd attendance and sales and my brand messaging or my, what was my creative messaging. But you can't get sales and messaging in the same model. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm just thinking though, like if you've got an amazing Facebook ad, recreating that, like it's going to skew that to show the return is amazing on Facebook. But obviously you can't run that creative again.
No.
You're putting your
Well, I mean, it can't get that level of detail.
Okay.
There's obviously, and that's what I mean, like the model is not ever going to be 100% accurate. You want to try and find the right trend line and figure out the channels that are investing in that or impacting it. All right, okay. Let's see how Zia went. Oh no. Oh, is there Wi-Fi here? Do we have Wi-Fi? Yeah. Oh yeah.
There's still $5,000 to spend.
Yeah, we just want you to spend over, but you can actually spend through it. You know what? I'm going to try a hotspot from my phone. Anyone have those phone networks? No? Jill, can you grab my phone out of my bag up there, or actually just bring your phone up if that's okay?
This is the most suspense I've had at the whole conference.
Good enough. It's good.
Second one there. Red meat.
Let's just think it's, let's just try.
Because if you're like the
Alright, there's a hotspot on.
as you can see,
You like
the data,
I know, right? I should get a job.
those ones were delivering the ROI,
Okay, alright.
regression model.
Here we go, come on. Come on! Why is it not going?
In
No,
tomorrow.
well, there. I think you have to do it again. Okay, there you go. You get the tech is not working. Okay, so well, we've got a simulator basically. You come down to the stand, you can actually put it on the simulation. It then tells you how you went. The top score is 8 million. If you get 8 million, you win $1,000. So you just won $100. It's fantastic. Come over we go. How do I go back to the preso? Is that okay? Oh yeah, so we won $7,000. That was basically it. Yeah. We have an exclusive arrangement with a company called Rima Labs, who are global MMM providers. We're currently working with them on a number of different projects. If you're interested in it, by all means come and talk to me at stand. I'm absolutely wrecked after today. I can't wait to get down there and have a beer and just talk some shit. But at some point, come and have a chat to us. And I don't know how long much time we've got left, but I'm happy to have like Q&A.
Yeah, you've got more than 5 minutes to go play time.
Okay, sweet. Any other questions?
So when you said about the cadence and it has to be equal across all channels, do you mean the investment that you're making in those channels?
Yeah, so the reason why I talk about the cadence is because we generally try and work with 10 to 15 variables. Now, the challenge that we have is you've got to get my media budgets, I've got to get the weather, I've got to get, like, we would sit down and figure out what are all the impacts that are going to be thrown in the model. We take those, and you can imagine like your sales revenue, right? Your sales revenue spreadsheet, that's good. I've now got Dave's media plans. I want to put Dave's media plans into the spreadsheet. I have to put them into the same spreadsheet, in the same columns, the same data, the same everything, the same pivot table. So there's no point in having sales measured on monthly and then media spent on weekly. All the impacts have to be in there. When you're measuring things that aren't necessarily quantifiable, like posters and stuff, I use posters in the lemonade stand, you'll just be putting a 1 or a 0 and stuff like that. But you have to put, the challenge with MMM is getting all the data and putting it all into one spreadsheet and cleaning it. That's what I said at the top, 85% of the analysis, the first step in MMM is actually exploratory data analysis, EDA. And that EDA is basically putting everything into one spreadsheet, like your 10 to 15 variables that you put in there. So the reason why the cadence has to be the same is because we need to be able to measure what that impact is at any given time, because your X and Y axis need to match up.
Sorry, let me rephrase that. So what I was trying to get at is that, for example, if you're investing more in Facebook ads, that's going to have a bigger impact on your, as a driver of your sales. Like it looks as though it drives more of your sales.
It may.
Because you spend so much in it, whereas other channels you're not spending. So how does it?
That's the linear regression analysis. That's the analysis that we do. So basically, you take that and then you have to try and figure out what was the impact on sales. That for me, that's the pure statistical analysis. That's what the Y equals G times X answers.
I think she was asking, do you have to have the same amount of investment?
Oh, no.
And you don't.
No, absolutely not. No, that case that we had before, different investments over time, same thing. Yeah, you could have 90% in Meta and 10% in something else, and you would still be able to figure that out.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just all statistical.
For accuracy, like that cadence, what do you recommend if you were to look over the past two to 3 years? Is it daily?
It depends on the data that you want to put into the model. It really depends. I mean, I would say weekly or monthly would be good. Daily is probably like too much.
It fluctuates.
It'll fluctuate way too much. So I would say, if you're looking at a 2-year period, I'd say weekly or monthly.
If you don't have 2 years of data, what would you suggest for companies that are perhaps 18 months in and want to be looking at this at some stage? What could we prepare for to start looking at some of this?
Ooh, good question. Cleansing of data, like because that is generally going to be the time-consuming part. I mean, we're all pretty good marketers. The fact that you guys are here, like I don't know what the time is, like almost 5 o'clock. Shows that you've got pretty good gut instincts around what works or doesn't work. This will just help quantify a lot of the impact that you're currently doing. That generally, if you're putting some BPOD activity out, you can, and you isolate it into a region, you do some A/B testing. You can do test and learning. This is really helpful when you're talking to founders, brand owners, explicit people that are always asking you about what's quantifiable, how are we getting a return on it. If you're 18 months in, I would just be prepping my data so that I can build it into the model and build it into the system. And I think the hardest part is probably just starting. The hardest part will definitely be starting and talk. I mean, I've tried to go through this in 20, 25 minutes. It's fucking hard, man. It's really deep. And then you got to take people that aren't in marketing through this. I mean, their minds are going to be blown. So the hardest part is probably just going to be having the conversations and saying, okay, we need to think about this at some point and bring it in. And if you can get past that hurdle, well then I'd say that's the major one you've crossed. Okay, I'll answer that next. Yep.
I'm not sure if I struggled with something and everyone else got it or not, but how do you account for different timelines to purchase, for the different channels? So maybe bottom funnel kind of activity, maybe only a couple of days and then purchase. Something more upper funnel.
I mean, the funnel isn't linear, really. I mean, at the end of the day, 95-5 rule. 5% of your market is going to be market at a given time, and then they float into that funnel. I reckon the term demand creation is bullshit. You can't create demand. You can capture demand, but it's really hard to create demand. Really hard. So I think the advantage of MMM is that it does capture, especially over that long period. It'll capture any impact. And if you're doing out-of-home TV ads, it's going to have a negligible impact now. But that negligible impact will cumulatively over time have pretty good impact. Do you know what I mean? Otherwise you wouldn't do top of funnel activity. That's part of the problem with ROAS. It only measures that short-term base, but cumulatively your top of funnel activity is working over a 12 to 24 month period. It's just building mental availability in your brain.
Well, we've got a very simple metric called ROAS. If you don't like it, forget it.
No, I don't mind it. I just don't think it's a measure of effectiveness.
So how am I supposed to use MMM in my business? Do I have to use Google Booker Studio or Data Studio? Is there any other templates that can work?
I think ROAS is fine. It's just an overstatement. I just think ROAS is like a guide.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely wouldn't be talking and putting all my eggs based on ROAS and deciding on ROAS. I think there's a lot of caveats you have to have with it. I think to use something like this, you just have to look at longer attribution cycles.
So if I can attribute Meta, in theory, TikTok, Klaviyo, and all those other metrics, and the money I put into it, would I be able to get those same metrics that you're showing up there?
Probably not. No, I don't know. I mean, the term attribution was invented by Google and Facebook. There was no attribution before Google and Facebook. They created attribution so that their ads, revenue would increase. Hopefully your agencies that you're working with aren't just taking all Google's recommendations or Facebook's recommendations. I think you need to be able to have a quantitative view on it and make some measured judgments. And like I said, gut instinct is heavily underrated in my opinion as well. Expert judgment. This will help quantify the impact of all market variables. But if you're only dealing with 2 or 3, then your attribution and stuff like that is probably an easier way for you to make those judgment calls on it.
I think the difficult part is that cookie depreciation is hard for us to work out where our money's going and spend. I don't think ROAS is something I'd always use personally, but I don't know how to quantify the money I'm spending at Meta and Google respectively to know which one deserves more money.
Well, third parties are going to make that harder. That happens in June. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Big round of applause going. That was unbelievable. That brings an end to our breakout sessions for today. The expo downstairs is just opening up. There's some drinks, some food. It's a great chance to mingle with fellow retailers.
How do you
clean the data?
It's fucking hard.
And
I don't do that. We send that to our partners at Rema Lab. That is the longest